Okay, so Josh, you were telling me in detail about the kind of marketing that you do for artists.
Yeah, so my experience was that I'd been wanting to really, I'd wanted because I thought it would be fun and interesting to release more instrumental content. So I just really studied what everybody was doing, and I noticed a distinct lack of direction in terms of like a holistic marketing approach beyond just putting it on the label playlists and hoping for editorials. Um, and then when the editorial landscape changed over the last couple of years, where certain labels were getting all the editorials and nobody else really was, I think it left a lot of labels high and dry because they didn't have a plan. Um, and my thought was that I really wanted to avoid that. So um, basically, we have a plan to pitch curators. We have a plan to pitch blogs, and there aren't a ton of options for instrumental music. Um, Radio, there's a lot of it, but it's tedious. It's a lot of work. Um, Sync licensing is something I've done really well with over the last decade, and we've worked with major brands across car companies, Fortune 500 companies, and things like that. So basically, I wanted to present a scenario where if I'm partnering with an artist on a release, we have a plan, and we're going to do things beyond just pitching playlists to help them because I think that provides a little bit of extra value and also um, supports the release, to do more than, okay, release is coming out here, do an Instagram reel, post on your social media, yay, for about a week, and then, you just never talk about it ever again. I mean, that's cool, and I understand the lifespan of lo-fi music, but I think there's so much more that could be done. So that's what I thought I would bring to the table that was maybe different than other labels and other opportunities. And I get it. Like it's hard because it's a lot of extra work, and um, since lo-fi music is tends to be more of a like background music and less engaged active listeners, it's more of a passive experience. I understand that time and money into something that people might not engage with beyond streaming a couple times on a playlist. I get that, but I just think for what my goals were and the artists that I was attracting to the label, um, our goals linked up in that sense where we wanted to do something more than just hope for an editorial and get on some playlists.
Interesting. If you don't mind, let me describe some of the synchronicities I've noticed within the genre. So, I've interviewed a lot of lo-fi artists on behalf of this show, and one thing that I've noticed that sticks out to me in particular is that lo-fi artists are extraordinarily much more satisfied and much better taken care of by their labels than artists in just about every other genre I've witnessed. Now, I don't want to make like blanket statements and assume that all other genre labels are doing a poor job because they're not. But I've noticed that lo-fi artists just tend to be more satisfied with their label experience, and I almost credit it to guys like you with a plan to go the extra mile and do these things that, like, I talk to lo-fi artists that are making enough to get by on Spotify streams, and they pay like dirt for streams. So you know that they are getting an extraordinary amount of ears on that track to be able to cover living costs. Um, Couple things, I feel like you bring a unique perspective in some things that have not been described to me in detail, specifically radio and sync licensing. So I'm curious to know what your experience with radio has been like and what you think its relevance today is.
Well, there's a couple different. I think because of my experience in being able to like experience market shifts and also think outside of the box because of the styles of music I've worked with through the past few decades. Like it's not pop music, so you got to think outside of the box in the sense of where does this fit in, and are there some like micro niches that one could target? So specific to radio, obviously, getting the the instrumental played is the goal. But there are also opportunities for the songs to be used as music beds for like talk breaks, or like even beyond just radio specifically, but like highlight packages and video backgrounds and things like. So there's more that can be done with this because there aren't lyrics, so it doesn't compete with whatever else is going on if it's paired with a visual or if someone's talking over it. So I've tried to think of like, what can we do that maybe nobody else is doing with this piece of music? So obviously pitching radio, there's been some really cool shows. BBC Radio had a pretty significant instrumental hip hop show. They played a lot of lo-fi, chill hop, jazz hop stuff for a long time. That show is on hiatus right now, but really big supporter of the scene. But then there are those other, fringe opportunities, because there aren't lo-fi radio stations on terrestrial radio, AM, FM. I mean, you'll run into it on YouTube, but that's different, I guess. But I think there's tremendous opportunities to pitch the music as, something that's cool. They could play while they're talking about the news, the news break and things like that. So trying to find places for us to fit in, but also to kind of push our way into spaces that you just wouldn't normally consider is my goal with radio.
It seems like you've managed to turn a, quote unquote disadvantage of the genre into an advantage. You talked about it being a passive experience and like more background music, and being able to kind of shoehorn that into other existing mediums like talk shows and stuff seems like a really creative solution to me. Do you mind describing the process of how you get a radio placement? Is it just a matter of having connections and knowing people who are willing to play the show, or do you have to go through a period of submissions?
It's a little bit of everything, just because each contact and each relationship is at a different stage of that process. I mean, the like specifically talking about like the BBC opportunity, they found us, which is the best place to be, is when they're reaching out to you because they like what they've heard, and somehow they've heard it somewhere, and they want to support it. But normally it's a certain amount of cold call pitching, and going through submission processes. And the number one piece of advice I can give there is follow instructions, because one size does not fit all. Some people want MP3s. Some people don't want an email. Some people would never open an email that has a wave attached to it. Some want Dropbox. Some want SoundCloud. It's tedious. But if you want the opportunity, you're gonna go through the steps to make it happen. And if there's any like big overarching lesson that I've learned in the last couple decades of music, it's that the little things matter and they build up. And it might not be for that particular thing you're pushing or pitching, but it might culminate in some other way. I've got a really cool story about sync licensing for later in that regard, but simply showing up and doing things the right way and being on time and approaching it professionally and doing what people ask for is the secret sauce. It's not, oh, it's about who you know, and it is, but if you're a doofus and you're not, you're sending people music in a way that doesn't work for them, like, you shouldn't expect anything. So the process is just following directions, and I keep notes on what everybody likes, how they want the music, and then I parse out my contact list in a way where I can focus on, okay, this group of people only want to be pitched through an Instagram direct message. And then I can prepare my pitch and move accordingly. But having received email pitches myself through my Sphere of Hip Hop blog, I've seen everything wrong. Like, I've never once covered a country music song, and I get country music 2 or 3 times a week because people are buying an email list and dropping in. Thankfully, most people go into the blind carbon copy when they're going to spam a whole bunch of bloggers. But it's like, it's annoying. So if you're annoying, you're not winning any favors at all.
It's incredible the amount of effort you put into organizing the preferences of your contacts. It almost seems like a maitre d' or like concierge services for professional business contact organization. So I have a lot of respect for that, because I think that really is the way to get to people, is to not treat them like they're another box to check, but like, I know
Exactly.
you personally, I
Yeah.
know what you like. Here's the guidelines to follow. So yeah, incredible advice, honestly.
It's a
Um,
it's a winning strategy. Like, it we I hear all the time from people that, even people that I've represented and worked with, they're like, oh, Submit Hub sucks, and oh, these people don't know anything about music. And I'm like, well, here's the strategy that I've told you about, and this is what works. Keep notes, listen to what they cover, look at the blog. Like, if you're sending them stuff that's irrelevant to them, like, of course they're not gonna like it. Like, it's not, nothing nothing that I do is like some secret mysterious thing. It's built on a lot of common sense and just diligence and hard work. It's you show up. It's not, you know you, you see the talk on social media where it's like, oh, if you don't know the right people. I was like, well, sure. I mean, that's definitely an advantage, and it is a factor. But you know what? Because I spend that little bit of extra time to understand what these outlets like, a lot of opportunities come my way that I don't have to ask for, because they're like, I have this idea in my head, and we're like, you know what? I know Josh because he'll get back to me in a day. He'll get me exactly what I need, and he'll come through, and it'll be great. And it's easy. It's not like, well, I asked for these 4 things, but you only gave me 2, so now I got to Google for 20 minutes to like. It's easy. I've answered all their questions before they've even asked them.
Definitely. I mean, there's a lot to be said about professionalism and organization, especially. It's like, I feel like artists in general have a bad reputation for having pop star egos. It's like, you don't get to behave like an ignoramus while you're in the early stages of trying to form those
Mhm.
professional connections. If you don't mind, if I pivot here, I would love to hear more about the sync licensing. So I just want to add to this conversation specifically, like, where do you see the future of radio as playing a role in music promotion?
Um, boy, it's interesting because FM radio is it's like it's popular. Like, people still listen in their car, but I think um, consumption patterns are changing, but yet people are changing at the same kind of rates. So maybe an audience that would only consume content on TikTok now, in 5 years, they might be listening to the radio. And I'm a major proponent of using the tools that you have available to you, and understanding that that's going to change and adapt over time, and you gotta move with it. Um, and understanding also, as an artist, where your fans and your crowd congregates, and then trying to locate where that is, and then hitting them with the right stuff. So I think there's a lot of potential in radio. I think when certain formats are proven to be valuable, um, opportunities come their way. There will be more radio programs. There will be more dedicated radio stations um, to different formats. And I think there's never been a better time to have hyper specialized radio programming just because of how easy it is. Obviously, some that's only directed at a local market where you have to be within a certain distance of their radio tower to get it is a factor. But you know, there's online, you know, iHeartRadio, there's XM, Sirius, like it. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but it boils down to there has to be demand for it, and there has to be some money behind it, and that money shows up when the demand is there, and you can sell advertising, or you know, your consumers essentially demand it as part of their subscription package, or you know, whatever it happens to be, I guess. So I think it's changing, and I can see how some people in radio might be a little nervous and scared, but um, I don't I don't know that much has changed. Radio isn't the thing anymore. It's different, but it's not like falling apart tomorrow or anything like that, in my opinion.
Right. As a child of the streaming era, I found myself pleasantly surprised by radio, right? Like in my local district, we have three types of stations, and it's pop, it's classic rock, and it's country. But you know, so it as a another music consumer with niche tastes, I thought radio, FM radio was dead till I heard Sirius XM radio at the gym. And I
Hmm.
was like, I have my favorite DJs playing shows at like 8
Hmm.
p.m. while I'm, you know, working out. So I think even even technologies that like some of these younger generations might consider dated still have a lot of utility. And I really love the idea of using every tool at your disposal. This idea that these small things that may seem insignificant and like not necessarily a waste of time, but just like, oh, I'm not getting like an immediate high dopamine return from this effort, all collect towards this body of work that exists in all these different formats that, you know, like you never know when BBC is going to find it and reach out.
Hmm.
If I can pivot right here, I would love to hear more about what you do in the sync licensing domain.
Sure. So um, I I got my start with Sync when I was at the EMI label. Um, I mean, we had music placements in all the major broadcast networks: ABC, NBC, CBS. Um, a lot of it was very youth focused. You know, skateboarding shows, surfing, extreme sports sort of stuff. Um, but there was a few times that stuff got in movies and things like that, and I really didn't take it as seriously as I probably should have, which would have put me way ahead. Um, Only because it wasn't like part of my job duties. It wasn't my deal. It was just this extra thing we kind of did, and it was like our goal was to sell CDs, you know, and get on an end cap in Best Buy, and be in the flyers that came in newspapers, and full page ads in Elemental magazine, or you know, whatever hip hop magazine people were into at the time. Um, I guess as I kind of progressed along, I kept in contact with certain people, and it finally started to gel for me. I'm like, you know what? Um, there are a lot of opportunities out there, and it's basically boils down to if you're in front of the people that are making the decisions. Because if you're not, they can't choose you. They can't just, you know, randomly. It very rare. Um, so just through the years, just by being around and being in places and being available to be chosen, um, I can look it up on my computer. We started pitching. We would actually mail CDs to different, like ESPN, different networks and things like that. Nike, um, all kinds of different places. I ran into a guy that followed us on Twitter, and this was in the golden age of Twitter. But he worked for Sega in Japan, and I was like, "Hey, can I mail you CDs when we have new music?" And he's like, "Sure." So he gave me, so every month or so when we had a new album come out, we'd mail him a CD, and never heard anything from him. Never heard, but we kept doing it. You know, it back then it was cheap. It was only like $3 to mail a CD to Japan. Now it's like $15 or something. But anyway, one day out of the blue, he hits me up and was like, "Hey, we got a project, and I think you guys would be perfect for it." This is the game studio that did Bayonetta, which is a pretty big game. And and he was like, "Okay, so this is how it works. We have an in-house producer. He will send you the production. This is what we want the song to be about. This is how the song structure goes. Um, you know, go to work." So he sent us. We got 3 songs, and we turned them in within 3 days. Um, Absolutely nailed it. And he's like, "I love it." And he gave us 3 more songs, and then he basically just said, "Name your price." So because of we and at that point I was like, "Well, I don't know." We kind of guessed. I think we were probably a little bit low, um, but the guys got paid for a couple hours of work, and that seed that we planted by randomly running into that person online, and simply by showing up, mailing the CDs over and over, and they were quality, and they were stuff that would make sense to what he was doing. Not, we weren't sending, you know, country music to a metal show, or anything like that. And it was our first big time indie placement. Now we've done music for 7-Eleven, 7-Up, Adidas, Adobe, Amazon, Apple. The Backstreet Boys used one of our songs, BBC, Breville, Chevrolet, Cover FX, Dallas Cowboys, Dr. Pepper, EA Sports, ESPN, Facebook, Finish Line, Fox Sports, Gary V, Google, Hennessy. We had an iPhone ad, MLB, NBA, and just it goes on and on and on, because we show up, and try to figure out, like, okay, we're small, but how do we gain some sort of advantage based on how we move and how we pitch music, and then also just through sheer repetition, through showing up. The placement rate is really low with licensing, but if you know what people want and how they want it, and you're easy to work with, it's a winning formula, and it has been for us. We've had, I don't know, 600 or 700 sync placements in the last 10 years, and it's allowed us to do to move into spaces that we couldn't necessarily afford or weren't willing to financially risk to operate in. And we've had situations where we spent 10 minutes creating a track, and it landed a $10,000 sync placement. So and not everyone is like that, and it's just kind of how it happened. But on average, we're doing really, really well in that space, because we've put in the time and we've put in the work. It's not easy, and a lot of people don't handle the rejection well, so it's a difficult exercise. So there are situations where it maybe makes sense to hand off the pitching to someone else if that's too difficult. And beyond that, simply what I bring to the table for my roster of artists is I deal with all this stuff. They can just create, and I can email and phone call and pitch and collect money and send checks out, and all they have to do is just show up and make beats, basically.
It reminds me of the story I've heard about the Beatles. This was related to, I think, like talks about Rick Rubin and like his participation as a producer in, helping make some magic happen without ever actually touching any instruments.
Hmm.
Um, and the story goes that like the Beatles were all hanging out together, doing LSD, playing music, and just like spending this inordinate amount of time together creating art. And yet, in the space where beautiful art is being produced, there's like a mountain of dirty dishes in the sink that are just collecting there. And the
Yes.
concept is that no matter what you're working on, the severity, the beauty, the magnitude of the project, someone's still got to do the dishes. So if you can be the guy who can come in and like do the work that allows artists to shine like that, that's like
Hmm.
an invaluable skill, especially if you're good at it. It to me really speaks to this idea of planting a seed and nurturing a very finicky, high maintenance plant until it bears fruit years later. So I applaud you for that. That was an incredible success story.
Yeah, no, and it's, I understand that labels get a bad rap, and some of them rightfully deserve the talk that's around them. I basically, when the landscape of things was really changing, I would say 15 years ago, I made it up in my mind. I was like, if I can at least double or triple what this person can do on their own, there's no use for us working together. And there are some artists that can totally exist outside of a label artist, relationship, and it's it's hard. It's a lot of work, because all the stuff that I do, I would guess that most artists don't want to do that. I mean, they would like to maybe keep that share of the money, but then when it comes down to like, holy crap, like I have to spend $100 to pitch my song on Submit Hub, and I gotta figure out how to do ads on YouTube, and like I have no radio list, and like where do I start? And it's really overwhelming. So I guess from my standpoint, that's what I try to, when an artist and I are talking about working together, I'm just like, I'm realistic. Like, this is what we can do for you. This is what we're good at. This is what we're working on. And then here are some dreams. And then if it makes sense for us to partner, and I look at it as a partnership instead of us, we're a king and they're our pawn. And we don't win until we both win. And even down to the deal points and how we split the money and stuff like that, it's all built on that fundamental of it being a partnership. And I guess in the lo-fi scene, I haven't seen a maturation of that kind of idea. It's like you might get a favorable split, but as an artist, you're still kind of seen as like purely a commodity, and that and that can work for certain people too. But I don't like that.
I think it's a very holistic approach to doing what you do. If I could bring this discussion of specifically sync licensing to a close, I'm curious to know what it's like nowadays. How do you pitch a sync licensing? Are you still mailing CDs to Japan, or
Oh boy. There's no like one way, because everybody wants something different, and probably the main thing is being, I have to be available, and that's another thing that I guess I add value to the people I work with. Is I might get something, and we had a situation with Tommy Hilfiger. We got a brief, and we're like, hey, I think we could do something for this. It was kind of like a pop track, but had some urban leaning tones to it. I was like, well, let's give it a shot. So I got the pitch. I think it was Wednesday night late. It was like 9 o'clock at night or something. And then I sent it off to the two people that I thought, okay, you can do the vocals, you can do the production. I think you guys would work well to, with each other. Um, and so they put something together and had a rough idea of the song by Thursday morning. And then we recorded it, and then we mixed it, and then we had it over by Friday morning. And then I can't remember if it was Friday night or Saturday, the song was on a runway show in Shanghai, China. Like it moves fast. So to kind of address the question head on is you need to do whatever it takes. And you're going to hear a lot of no, and you might not even hear anything back. That doesn't mean it was a no. It means, not right now. And you just got to do whatever it takes to get the songs in front of people and not annoy the people you're working with, and basically be quick. Because the Tommy Hilfiger thing is how it can work. Sure, you can build up a library of songs that you're always pulling from and pitching, but a lot of brands will want, bespoke kind of content, and they'll want, like an Olive Garden commercial will want like maybe some plucky strings and like mellow guitar, and we don't have everything on hand, but if the time links up, why not? Because if nothing else, it's another, if we don't get it, it's another song to add to our catalog. And sync is forever. That's why you hear 50, 60-year-old songs still being used, because of the feeling it adds to their product advertisement. So you just never know. And things we've created that we thought, oh, this is a home run for a Nike ad or something like that, never gets a placement. And then other things were like, we had a song that was part of an album, and it was a 17 or 18 track album, and it was the instrumental for the intro for the album, which typically on a hip hop record, it's probably a good beat, a nice track, but it's not like the single, like the best song. So it's maybe the 12th best song. That song's got like dozens of placements, a McDonald's commercial, like all kinds of stuff. So you just never know. But the bottom line is, if you show up and pitch how it needs to be pitched, you'll start to hear some yes, and get paid a little bit too.
There's a really powerful element to me that sticks out of like strike while the iron's hot, but with the understanding that you have to be in the shop at all times, never knowing when the iron's going to get hot, which is, like I think it takes commitment on a level that people don't realize until they're in it, and they either burn out and realize what they've gotten themselves into, or they realize just what kind of sacrifices it's going to take to make it happen. If I can kind of re-steer here, I would love to hear more about your experience with artists you've signed. What in particular makes you feel compelled to sign an artist? How do they typically reach out to you? Do you find them? How does that partnership become established?
Oh, that's a good question. So I like to have long-term partnerships. So I'm very intentional about getting to know people before we even, talk about business, which is funny, because some of the lo-fi stuff I'm doing now, I've signed tracks with people, like we've talked on like DM like 3 times, which is so strange to me, but it works because we have mutual friends and they've seen how I support releases and how I support my artists, and how I move and things like that. So that helps a lot as well. But I tend to prefer building a relationship first, just to see, like, because there's people you like, but like, I don't know that I'd ever want to do business with them, because there's something about my personality or their personality where it's like, it just doesn't it doesn't it doesn't fit. And I've worked with artists over the years where like the music is phenomenal, over the top, but the the business part is really arduous, and it really kind of sucks the joy out of the process. So I've just kind of made a conscious decision where it's like, if we're not a good fit, like I'm never going to force anything. And it might be a really amazing opportunity, and I've said no to more stuff lately than I've said yes to, just because it maybe wasn't a style that fit for us. Like, I think they're attracted to what we're doing because of how we support artists, but it's like, we this is a cool song and I like it, but like, it doesn't fit within our infrastructure, and it doesn't make sense in terms of who we've identified our audience as being, and having a robust enough approach to support that in the way that it deserves. So cool song, but not right for us. Um, and that's hard, because it's, people that I've become really good friends with, and I'm like, it's not you, it's me. um, so the process is different every time, but the basics, I think, are the same. Is establishing some sort of rapport with them, and um, observing like how we communicate, and um, you know and also not forcing it, or um, not being okay with it not working out, like, but still being friends. And that's really cool. So I have some really great friends in lo-fi that I probably wouldn't release a lot of music with, just because it's not a style match, or it's just we're not it for them, and that's okay. And I think I would have really struggled with that when I was much younger, because I wanted everything to work, and I saw like the potential in a specific artist or an album, um, but I wasn't kind of at the place where I am now, where it's like, I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. Back then, I didn't know. Like, I was still kind of learning it. So I guess that's an advantage for me, and it helps our relationships with artists quite a bit, because we just don't have any of those hangups that maybe I did when I was younger and newer and greener on everything. So hopefully that addressed what you were hoping
It,
for.
it sure did. Yeah, no, if I can summarize some takeaways, I feel like people should prioritize being easy to work with. Like we've mentioned it before, don't be a diva. Um, but also it's like I've had some very dear to my heart friends that I made the mistake of moving in with them, and we had very incompatible lifestyles, like,
Hmm.
and our relationship soured, and then with the majority of them got much better once we separated, and you start to realize the difference. You grow into the maturity of the discernment to be like, good friend, not a good business partner, not a good
Yeah.
roommate, that sort of thing. So
Yep.
no, I can definitely see the appeal, and it does seem like you worked really hard to develop a sense for that discernment, which is, like, part of the reason I think that you're doing so well in the industry. Sorry, I wanted to pivot to another question, but I got
Sure.
so wrapped up in that one, I lost my train of thought a little bit. Oh, I wanted to give you an opportunity to name drop. So I know that this is
Gosh.
probably like picking a favorite child, and I wouldn't want you to put anyone on the spot or make anyone feel left out. But are there any collaborators, artists, projects that you've teed up that you are particularly proud of or found to be noteworthy pinnacle moments of your career?
Oh boy. I don't see how there's any way that I can't get in some sort of trouble by giving an
That's
answer
a fair answer.
for this. But um, I think I really like everybody that I get to work with. And sincerely, I know that's kind of a cop out answer, but I really mean it. Like, um, we, uh, yeah, I'm even going down the list in my head, and I'm like, we really work well together, and we have a good understanding of what needs to be done. And uh, I'm in a different space where I need some of my people to be primarily self-starters. Um, and there's also a great element of trust involved too, where it's like they know where the roadmap leads, and I can just do my thing and they can create. And then when it's time, we come together and we're like, okay, what's our plan for this? So I can offer a great amount of artistic freedom and, just letting people do what they do without being really involved and kind of overproducing people. And then what I can do is I can be like, hey, okay, this can work, but this particular element of the approach or the song would potentially give us some trouble in this space. Do we still want to proceed, or do we want to try something else? And that's about as far as I ever go into that space. But I really enjoy everybody I get to work with. And I mean, there are a couple artists that I've been working with for 25 years. And then there are other artists that I'm working with now that have released with really big labels, Chill Hop and Lo-Fi Girl and stuff like that. And I'm like, why did they pick me? But I try to also understand that, like, I'm without as little ego as possible, but like, I'm good at what I do. And I deserve to be here, and I am okay to be here. Like, I'm not, I have all this experience, and that matters. So it's a really, really neat place to be in. And yeah, like, since starting to release singles through the Sphere of Hip Hop label, it's forced me to adapt, where I think I was selling myself short a little bit in terms of what could be done. I mean, we were doing some really cool stuff, but like, we're actually operating at a much higher level than I ever gave myself credit for. And that was good for me to realize and understand, and help me to have more confidence moving forward, and also taking some risks. So I actually have a list of artists that I want to work with in some capacity, and there's about 100 on the list currently. And in just the last 12 months, I've worked with about 30 of those artists, and I think in 2025 I'll probably cut that list down by another 30 or 40. All right, and then there were some that would be on my list, but I was like, no way, there's no chance. Like, and a lot of that stuff is coming to me, so it's a good place to be in.
Most definitely. I think that the confidence sounds well deserved, and I really like this. Not only optimistic, but like, you talked about, like, having trust. Obviously, you've got to trust your partners, but giving people space to be artistic and providing that informed counsel without doing too much toe stomping, I think sounds
Hmm.
like the kind of thing that I expect from a mentor. And that's actually what I wanted to ask you about as we sort of drive things to a close here. So you mentioned at the very beginning of this interview that you do consulting. What does that typically consist of? How do people find themselves involved in it?
Sure. I Just because I'm so busy, I don't have a ton of time to do it. If at some point the music thing just didn't, releasing music, that part of things, it didn't work out, or it wasn't viable, like, I feel like I could do consulting full time. Um, Basically, I've mentored dozens of people that run other labels, um, that can range from, like, let's catch up every couple months, um, spending time with them, at like a music conference, and after we get out of a session or something, and just talking to someone for an hour, phone calls. There's a group of, I have a, we use this app called Telegram, um, and we have a group of about 25 guys on there. And basically, I handpicked everybody, and I was like, I think I can give some time and knowledge and offer a safe space to talk about ideas and understand insecurities and, you know, not knowing the answer to things, and helping solve problems together, where it might be me and one other artist going back and forth, but the whole room is reading. So it's been it's something that I wanted to try, because it tends to be like more one-on-one. But this has been really neat because it's very organic conversation, and sometimes there won't be anything for a week or two, you know, and then maybe I'll pop in and be like, check out this article, and here's what my reaction to it, and here's some things you can be thinking about, and stuff. So basically, there's nothing like official about it, but I do offer one-on-one time for a small fee, and we can go through anything, because I've done the label thing. I've worked, you know, indie labels, which is what I'm doing now. I've worked in the major label system. I've worked in radio. I had a 3-hour radio show on Sirius XM right when they were merging, and I was so mad. They basically axed a bunch of channels because they deemed it duplicate content, and we were just getting ready to move our show over to XM 65, The Rhyme, which was like the goal. And our show got canceled, but it was fun because I got to understand. I had pitched music to radio for, you know, 10 years before that point. So now I got to be on the other side. And then I got to understand how, like, programming groups of songs and how the listener experience should be, which made it easier to program our online radio stream, and then also for playlist curation, which was the next thing that was coming down the pike, you know, 5-6 years after that. And I always loved picking songs and finding how songs fit together, and telling a story even within a block of like 4 or 5 songs. So that was a lot of fun. And then, you know, freelance PR and radio, and just all these different things. So I've kind of done every job in the industry. So I have a lot of different perspective, and I can see things from different angles, where a lot of gurus and talking heads in the industry are giving out advice that can sometimes be rather self-serving, where they're trying to funnel people in to go to a class rather than giving out maybe the best advice. So I guess what I offer is just a lot broader perspective and experience, and it's stuff that I've actually done, rather than, and I don't want to diminish, you know, somebody's experience where they've read some books and they have a good understanding of a topic, but like, I've done that and I've actually done the work. So it's if you make movies, it's different than reading books on how to make movies and having not made a movie before. I've done both, so I think I can give a more diverse opinion, and then I'm really careful to frame it like that too, or is like, this is the fact, and then here's my opinion in addition to the fact, and being able to operate from those different angles, and understand like all the things that an artist might be experiencing, or all the things that somebody running a label would experience, and we can address that in our call. So it's cool. Like, I enjoy doing it, but I don't do a ton of it just because I'm so busy with the other stuff. But I mean, if the music industry ever kind of imploded and releasing music just wasn't a thing. Like and maybe that would torpedo my ability to do the consulting, but if things changed, like I could see myself running into a situation where I did mentoring full time. I find it very fulfilling because I never had anybody that really a few people here and there, but I didn't have somebody I could just call up and be like, look, I'm really struggling to figure this out. What do I do? And it's nice to be able to provide that for other people. And it's neat that even there are some pretty high level people in the industry that will still reach out and say, Josh, like, what do I do about this? And I think it's also an effective tool for the brand as well as like we'll give out free game. Like it's okay. Like you don't have to monetize everything that you do all the time. So I think I'll write a book someday. But I don't know, maybe I'll just give it away because I think it would be more fulfilling that way. But we'll see. There's so much other stuff going on. But yeah, I do one-on-one calls. I've got 2 next week. So it's people talk and word gets around, and I get some referrals from time to time, and it's fun to do when I have time for it.
Definitely. It strikes me as very down to earth. For the record, I never expected it to be this, but I like how it doesn't come off as overblown and pretentious. Like pay $3K to attend this seminar, we'll give you the
Yeah.
secret sauce. Like it sounds very much just like a pipeline of wisdom. And I do appreciate the mentorship perspective. Like I taught guitar for a year. I never claimed to work dedicated in the music industry, but there's a sense of fulfillment you get out of helping other people self-actualize, which is coincidentally what we're trying to do here. So I really appreciate that take. I'm going to start to wrap things up here. I just wanted to ask you if you had any closing thoughts, advice that you would give to artists starting out, and a place that people can find you, perhaps submit to you if you're interested, and maybe any upcoming projects. I know that was a lot I just dumped on you.
Sure.
Right now.
Closing thoughts and advice. Align yourself with people that will be honest with you. I know in the business, I think there's assumptions that, going back to it's about who you know and stuff, and like you can't be your authentic self, or you have to sort of sugarcoat to get into favorable situations. And my experience is different. I just tried to be as decent of a dude as I could be, and show up and help people, knowing that it can be frustrating sometimes when you've helped people a lot and it doesn't come back, but trying to be okay with just helping without any precondition has benefited me, business wise, financially, whatever, more than if I had just monetized everything and put everything under lock and key. And so just being a decent person, being on time, following through, showing up. None of it's really rocket science to me. And, there's a gazillion books about it, and I read most of them, and they're all fine, but really, be the type of person and the type of artist that you'd want to work with. Like it's nothing more special than that, I guess. As far as connecting with me, I'm on all social media. Our handle is Sphere of Hip Hop, SPHEREOFHIPHOP. We got a cool YouTube live stream, so you can listen to, and it's a good kind of segue too for like the style of music that we look for to release as well. If you listen to our live stream, it's kind of 2 spaces we're focused on, because I think it's the two aesthetic places that we're best at supporting. So it'd be like 90s jazzy kind of boom bap stuff. So Pete Rock, some really cool stuff happening now in that space with new artists. And then also like organic jazzy beats with like actual instrumentation and not so reliant on samples necessarily, but with a hip hop kind of edge um, to it. But so that's kind of the core of our playlist. You can find us on Spotify. Our playlists are on Apple Music, which is really hard. They're kind of hard to find, but our website has all the links as well. So we're in a couple different places, just trying to, engage the audience where they are. But probably the thing I really like so much right now is our live stream. I have a lot of fun with that because I get to pick all the music, and we got lots of really, really neat comments from people all over the world, and we're like, "Oh, this is so much better than Lo-Fi Girl." I'm like, "Well, that's not what we're going for, but thank you."
Well, I am excited to check out the stream. Josh, I've appreciated you so much for coming here and sharing your experience and dedicating some of your time to like sharing this information with me. It's been really helpful, and I am grateful that you made the time to have this appointment. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Take it easy.